Hi y'all, today we're going to be talking about the NSO Shotgun Directive, aka the directive that rewards you with the Rutherford. Now, I only completed this directive last night. It was a month of arduous shotgun harassing that I did not enjoy one bit. However, upon completion and upon messing with the Rutherford for a bit, there is no doubt in my mind that this might be the most worthwhile directive to complete on NSO. Honestly, if you want a fun, unique weapon and not a horrid grind to get there, the Rutherford is exceptional. And while I've, like I said, admittedly not put too much time into the Rutherford, it's a ton of fun, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's great. It's super fun to use. And the directive itself, not that hard. So you will note that I chose to Raxium 2 Barons. Now this is because the Black Baron was on sale one day, and the HSG is a steaming pile of shit that we will get into shortly. So just be aware that this directive is going to look a little bit different depending on if you're willing to spend ABC or not. So, of course, we're going to go through each shotgun, like usual, say what's good about it, what's bad about it, and, well, go from there. So, starting with the HSG 400, I put 3 kills on this gun before putting it down. Now, I'm not going to say it's the worst shotgun ever. It still is effectively a pump action. Sure, it's semi-automatic, but it functions almost identically to every other pump action, you know. You can one-shot, but you've got an extremely slow rate of fire and a tiny magazine. So, the reason I didn't do the HSG 100 is because it just doesn't feel good to use. Honestly, pump actions right now in current meta are not good. My time with the demos recently completely took me off using a pump. I definitely think it's an Araximable shotgun. Don't get me wrong, I think it's probably a fine shotty to do. But pumps are some of the weakest shotguns in the game right now. I would skip it if possible. It definitely would be my go-to skip. But it is doable. It's just not a very, very good time. So the 2 Barons we're lumping together. The Baron is amazing. It's probably the strongest shotgun in the game right now. There's no reason not to Raxium it. It's just great. It's a wonderful shotgun. They're exceptional for what they are. And, you know, if you really want to skip, say, the HSG, just buy the black one. It's that simple. So the Viscount is just the Baron with a suppressor built on, and it's not bad, but it's not as good as the Baron. It's decent for what it is, and it is a must Araxium because, well, unless you're paying for a Baron copy, you have to Araxium every shotgun available to this faction, but even if you pay for a Baron copy, you should do the Viscount anyway, because it counts for the Black Market Directive as well. So you get double overlap with this one, which is always nice to have. It's not the best shotty ever, but you should do reasonably fine with it. It basically just comes down to being a Baron that's not quite as ranged. It's fine for what it is. It still remains my fastest Araxium because I got really good farms with it. It's a totally fine shotgun. It's just not as good as the Baron. The SG-100 is really, really good. It's really, really comfy to use. You get 10 rounds, up to 12 if you take extended. You get good pellet spread, you can one-shot to the head if you're lucky. It's a good shotgun. You know what? For what it is, it's a good shotgun. It's good. It's your starter kit option. It's a good shotgun. There's not actually a whole lot to say about the SG-100 because it's just a good shotgun. If you've ever used a semi-automatic, it's pretty much just that. But it feels really good because you get the high capacity of, say, the high-capacity semi-autos found in the regular factions with the good damage that you find on the normal semi-autos on the regular factions. It's a really, really nice shotgun. Now, the A25 is decent. I still think it's probably the weakest out of the 5 that I did. Not that it's a bad shotgun, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of fun to use, and just being able to hold the trigger on people in close range, really, really nice. It's not a bad shotgun by any means. However, it's worth noting that, at the end of the day, auto shotties are not as good as they used to be. The semis are just better than the auto shotties right now, and with only 6 rounds extended to 8, you are going to be burning through ammunition a lot, and you are going to be reloading a lot. It's rough. In addition, you've only got 5 meters of 112 range, which means that you don't have a lot of range in general, and because of your abhorrent pellet spread stat of 4, it doesn't work at range. It's really, really good within about 5 meters, maybe 10. Past that, it's horrid. It's better than the HSG, but on the whole, it's not that good. It's fun to use, though. I'll give it that. It's a fun to use weapon. So, the Rutherford, the directive weapon. This thing will be getting its own review once I sink some more time into it, but take this as more of a first impressions what I think of the Rutherford. And the Rutherford is amazing. I'm not going to say it's the most effective killer out there, but honestly, Rogue Planet absolutely nailed this thing as a directive weapon, and the shotgun directive as a whole, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but first we're going to just talk about the Rutherford as it is. So, the Rutherford is weird, because when you're hip firing it, it's basically just an HSG. Except you have slightly better reload, and you have slightly worse pellet spread, and you have slightly more max damage range. It feels a lot like an HSG. Ultimately, it is very similar to the HSG while you are just hip firing it. However, when you are aiming it down sights, it fires an explosive slug round that effectively works a lot like the Thumper. I haven't done a whole lot of testing on this round specifically, but without flak, you should be able to two-shot people to the body with it. And it's fun. You can kill people around corners, you can just lob rounds at doorways. Like, it's a really, really nice utility tool. Sure, it's not a super great shotgun, because as I mentioned, it's like an HSG when you're hip firing, which is already, I would argue, the weakest shotgun on this faction. It still works, obviously, you still get kills while hip firing it, but it's very limited. And while aiming down sights, it's a really, really nice tool, but it's still very slow to kill because you're still lobbing explosive slugs at people at 75 RPM. It's a lot of fun, it's a great utility tool, but would I consider it, like, a super effective weapon? Probably not. But I do want to talk about, just quickly... Oh, it's also worth noting, this thing would probably be excellent as an engineer secondary shotgun. Considering you can ASP shotguns into the secondary slot on engineer, which I don't have, it would be absolutely amazing in that slot. But I want to talk about just why I think this directive is so good. So, in my opinion, I really like directives that reward you with a weapon that is not necessarily, like, amazing, but is a neat, unique weapon that you can't really get anywhere else. This is why I like doing NSO directives, because you actually usually get pretty interesting directive rewards, albeit some of them are just garbage. I'm looking at you, Schrodinger. But the Rutherford is really, really cool, because it's a playstyle and an option that you cannot get anywhere else. Sure, while hip-firing it's just a regular pump shotgun, but being able to switch it into an explosive grenade launcher when you're aiming it down the sights is tons of fun, and you can't find that anywhere else. Obviously, the Thumper is the closest thing you can get to that, but that's a heavy weapon that you can only use in your heavy assaults. This thing you can run around with on light assault, in an engineer secondary slot. So, if you need to kill people at close range, just hip-fire it. It might suffer, but you can still just do that. If you need to poke people at long range, around corners, through doorways, through windows, you just use the explosive rounds. It's a lot of fun, and the directive isn't too painful to get it. Obviously, you have the HSG in here, which is just rough. But on the whole, it's actually a pretty easy directive. It's a lot of fun. It's absolutely worth going for. I genuinely believe it could be the first directive that should be worth going for on NSO. Obviously, that opinion may change as I start to clear out the rest of them, but the Rutherford is lots of fun. It's absolutely worth getting. It's absolutely worth your time. Just... I don't really recommend doing 5 shotguns back to back. It's going to take the life out of you. Thank you all, and I will see you all again another time. Bye.